Welcome to my podcast, guys. If you are here to work on your relationship with your child, then you are for sure in the right space because you will always have to work on your relationship with yourself. And this is what I offer here on my podcast. So if you listen to my podcast and hear things that are not obviously related to your son, listen on, because whatever you improve in your relationship with yourself will automatically improve all of your relationships, including with your son. So welcome and enjoy. Hey guys, how is it going? I'm so excited to talk to you. I also am so excited because we have so many trips booked. Just on a personal note, I'm so excited. I get to go to Toronto and help out my parents move, which really is a little bit selfish, but I want to help, but really I just want to be part of it. I want to be part of them moving. I haven't been to their house in a long time, over a year. So I'm really excited about that. I get to go see them, get to see their new house, their old house, and they get some help and I get to help them. So isn't that funny, hey, how the fun that we have these days is going to help someone move. And then the other thing that we're doing, my husband and I, we're taking a sailing course, actually starting this Sunday. It's a 2-hour info session and then 2 full days on the water. It's like a first start, keel, skipper course, whatever it's called. I don't know much about it yet, but we have this huge dream, actually, to go sail a big catamaran with all our kids and explore the world in a few years. So first we have to learn how to sail, and we don't even know if we like it yet, but we're kind of imagining we'll have fun doing it. So that's what we're doing, and we're also going to see some family in BC, and we're also have a trip booked to go to Victoria, BC. in Canada. So that's what's new in our life since COVID's kind of leaving a little bit and things are easing up. We're all having vaccinations. We booked so many trips. It's really exciting. So that's what's exciting in my personal life. And I'm so excited to share with you the tool that I use for my life, for my clients, for anything that ever happens, is this tool that is really a solution to any problem. Okay, so here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to tell you about the framework of how I look at life, and then I'm going to give you an example, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about how it's a solution to every problem, or I'll talk to it through as I explain it. And so here we go. So first I have to give the credit to Brooke Castillo. She changed my whole life by creating this thing, which is called a model. And this model is the way we look at life. We can look at life to help us solve problems or to help us create results in our life that we want, or to help us figure out how do we get this result that I didn't want. And so she created it about 15 years ago when she was starting out her coaching career, and now she has a very successful life coach school, which I graduated from. And this tool, even before I became a life coach, changed my life so dramatically that I just had to become a life coach because it's so helpful. It's so useful. It's so practical. You can apply it. There's exact steps to what you can do to figure out what the problem is, what the solution is. And so I just am so grateful to Brooke for doing her work and spreading it so that we people who are far away from her still get to have it and use it, and our lives are changed forever. And then I have the benefits of using this every day in my life because I still have a human brain. So I do need to use it to kind of sort out my thoughts and sort out my feelings and life and everything. So here we go. So the way we can look at life is in 5 categories. So everything in life can fall into any one of those 5 categories. The first category is circumstances. There are things in our life, like other people or things that happen outside of us that we have no control over. And they are also circumstances that they're not good and not bad. And everyone would agree. So hear me out. So there are circumstances that are not good and not bad until we have a thought about them. Okay? So a job is a job. It's not good, it's not bad until you have a thought about it and you think something like, oh, it's a great job. And then you give it meaning. And so your thought is a second category that we can sort life into, right? There's circumstances that are completely neutral. They don't have any inherent goodness or badness in them. And this is other people. This is other things that happen in life that are completely outside of our control. And I have really good news here because this is the only thing that we have no control over is things that happen outside of us, other people, other things, what other people do, what other people say, anything like that. And then the thought we always have, because we have a human brain that can think, we always have a thought about whatever happens outside of us, about other people, about what they do, about what they say, about what happens of events, anything like that. We have a thought about it, and the thought is what makes it good or bad for us, right? And so when we say circumstances are neutral, it's because not everyone would agree that they're bad or good. Okay, some people would think it's bad, some people would think it's good. And, there's different types of opinions too. It's not just all black and white, good and bad, but I'm just using it as an example, like make it super simple, right? Like the job. You could say, oh, it's a hard job, right? You could say it's a tiring job. You could say it's a low paying job, right? There's so many opinions you can have about a job that it's not necessarily always just good or bad, right? So far we've covered there's circumstances in life that are outside of us that we don't have control over. And that's the only thing that we don't have control over out of the 5 things. So then we have a thoughts about those circumstances and we give it the circumstance a meaning. Like, oh, I like this job, or this job is hard, or something like that. Anything that you think about the job is a thought, which is a sentence in your brain that your brain is thinking. And the thing about thoughts is they are completely optional. We don't have to think any of them. We can choose to think any thought we want. We can choose to think any sentence we want about the circumstance. There's no one forcing us to think anything about things. There's no one telling us not to think certain things. There's no police to tell us what we can think or not think. So the thoughts are they're completely subjective, right? They're created by our brain. So every brain will create its own thoughts. And sometimes we all share the same thought, right? Like death is bad, right? Like killing people is bad. We all share that thought collectively, and we want to choose that thought, right? Because it serves us. It serves us, and it is something that we want to choose to believe. So they're completely optional, and we have full control over what we think in our life. Sometimes, so that's why coaching exists, because sometimes we forget that we have control over what we think. We as humans, if we practice a thought long enough, we start to think that the thought is the truth of life. We start to think that this is just how life is. And when we say that thought, we think we're just conveying the news of the world. And so this is why coaching and talking to other people can be helpful, because other people with other brains can question that thought if they don't agree with you. And coaches are just trained to do that in a way that can get you the results you want, right? Whereas if you just talk to someone who doesn't share that thought with you, you might just end up in an argument and they would want to convince you of their point of view. Whereas coaches, all we want is what you want. And so if that thought is not serving you, then we will question it. Why do you want to believe this thought? And so that's just a little example of how coaching works. So we have circumstances, then we have thoughts about the circumstances. And when we have a thought, that thought creates a feeling in our body for us about this circumstance, okay? So feelings are extremely, extremely important because feelings always drive how we show up, what we do, what we say. They drive our actions. So they're like the fuel for the action, okay? So this is, now we covered four categories. We can sort things in our life into circumstances, things we cannot control. Then we have thoughts, things we think in our head, sentences. And those sentences create a feeling in our body about the circumstances. And those feelings are extremely important because depending on how you feel, you will show up in a certain way in your life. Let's say you think the job you have is great. So your circumstances, you have a job, everyone would agree, and the thought is, I love this job, for example. Then you feel love, or you might feel proud, you might feel happy. You have to check in with how you feel. So then if you feel happy, how do you show up in your job when you love your job, when you're happy? You probably do a good job, take your time, put in good effort, look forward to your job, are excited that you accomplish something, right? You probably do a good job when you are happy with your job. And then our actions, so how we show up in our job, create our results in our life, which is the last and fifth category that we can categorize things in all of our life into. So here are all the categories. The circumstances are things that are outside of our control. And then we have thoughts about the circumstances that are in our control completely, regardless of what the circumstances are, regardless of what other people do or say, regardless of what our job is, right? Because our job can be, our job just is, and depending on what our thought is, that will create our experience for us of the job. So then the thoughts create the feeling for us about the job, about the circumstance. And from that feeling, we will show up to that job, to that circumstance in a certain way. And if we think, I love my job, and we feel happy, and we show up to our job and do a good job, then we create a result in our life that is, we do a good job in our job, or we create ways for us to love our job. Like we make it possible for us to love our job because we are thinking this thought. Okay? So those are the 5 categories. And out of all 5, we have control over 4 of them. We have control over our thoughts, we have control over our feelings, and we have full control over how we show up. Because we can pick how we want to think about it, and we can pick how we want to feel about it. And if we pick those 2, then our actions will be fueled by those thoughts and feelings to have us show up the way we want to show up. Okay? And then, if we take care of those things, then our actions will create the result in our life, which we also have a control over, is the result that we want. We have control over. And so this is the framework that we can look at our life with. And once we do that, we can then pinpoint the problem. What is the problem always, and I'm just going to tell you, skip through all the guessing. The problem is in our life is always a thought problem. Okay? Why? Why is that so? Well, I'm going to give you an example of your relationship with your son. Let's say you have a teenage son, and you tell him, can you just fix some proper lunch for yourself? You're a teenage boy. You should be able to make some healthy lunch for yourself. Don't be lazy. And he says, why don't you do it? Okay. There's two ways how you can respond. And you can, in one circumstance, by default, could be, theoretically, I have coached someone on this. You could have a thought about him. He's a jerk. Like, how come he can't talk to me like that? He's a jerk. If you have that thought, so when your son says, why don't you do it? That is out of your control. You can't control him. You can't control what he says or does, even though we always try, right? And I just want to make sure you know that if we could control other people, I would for sure be sitting here and telling you how to do that. But unfortunately, we just can't do it. We can't do it successfully. We can't do it consistently. And we never, ever, ever succeed in doing it. If they do something that we wish they do, it's not because of our efforts. It's only because they chose to do it, right? So we're just going to skip right over to not trying to control them. And so that would be an external circumstance, fact in your life that you cannot control, no matter what you do, right? Because if you could, you probably would already have done that, right? So that is completely out of your control. And then you have a thought about it that you do have control over. And let's say your human brain offers you a very non-helpful thought, like he's a jerk. Even though your brain is meaning well, we'll give it that. He says it's a jerk. So when you think he's a jerk, that thought, that sentence in your brain will create maybe anger for you. Anger, frustration, something along those lines, right? You feel angry. Now, you have the fuel in you, the anger in you, boiling up in you. And so how do you show up to your son when you are angry and frustrated? Well, I just wrote down a couple ways, right? You're probably snapping at him. You're probably maybe yelling, maybe not. Maybe you're withdrawing. Maybe you're complaining to someone else about him. Maybe you're avoiding him. Maybe you're nagging on him, right? Maybe you're judging him inside of your head out loud or in your head. And also what you're doing is you're not trusting that he's a good boy. You're not trusting that he can figure out the good lunch. You're not trusting that this is all working out for him, and you're not trusting this is all working out for you. You're not seeing how this is all for the benefit of the both of you, right? All you're doing is you're seeing all the evidence for how he's a jerk. So this is how you're maybe showing up because you're angry, because you're thinking he's a jerk, and not because of what he said, right? What he says cannot control how you show up as a mom. Because between what he says and how you show up as a mom, you have a thought and a feeling which are invisible. So that's why we are taught our whole lives that other people can make us happy or unhappy, right? So this is something that we have to unlearn. This is what we're doing right now. We're like, no. In between other people and you, there's your brain, which has a thought, creates a feeling. And from that feeling, you say things, right? So then how you show up as a mom, and if you're judging and you're yelling and you're nagging and you're avoiding, you are showing up as a jerk, pretty much, right? So the thought that you have about him, he's a jerk, you are kind of showing up as a jerk yourself, right? You're well-intended, you're well-meaning. I mean, the mom that I coached about on this, she wants her son to be self-sufficient. Her intentions are so good. She loves him so much. She wants him to be able to make a healthy lunch for himself, to be self-sufficient, so that, he can be a self-sufficient adult. So intention was so good, right? But that thought, even though the intention was good, was not useful because it was having her show up as a jerk to her son, which is not really demonstrating what it is that you want him to do, right? So the result that you create for yourself in your life, it's never him. So often we, as humans, we want to say, okay, so if I have the right thought and I have the right feeling and I say the right thing, then the result for me will be that he makes his own lunch. No, unfortunately not. We cannot control what other people do, even if we have the right thought about it. Even if we're super loving and compassionate and we ask them super nicely, they might still say no, right? They might still say, I don't want to do this, right? So I have to give you the bad news and say no. The result that you will create in your life will always be the result for yourself in your life. Not for him, not him doing something, right? It will be for you. So how do you want to show up to your son when he says, why don't you do it? Do you want to show up as a mom who's loving and supporting and understanding and, basically, do you want to show up as a mom who sets up an example and supports your son and teaches her son how to be self-sufficient for the future and to be proud of yourself? Like, you know what? I did everything I could. I'm proud of how I showed up in this situation, even though he didn't make his own lunch, right? So let's go to that model. Let's go to that example. Like, what would that look like? So we're going to keep the circumstance, the son, who we cannot control. We're going to keep that the same. You say, hey, why don't you just make yourself some lunch that is good and, nutritious? And he says, well, why don't you do it? And he might say it with a tone, and he might say it with some sort of attitude, which I must say is always subjective. Always subjective, because what he says is not good or bad. It doesn't have a tone. It doesn't have attitude until we think he has attitude, until we think that was a bad tone. Okay? Because if other people were in the room and everyone was looking at him, everyone would have a different opinion about his tone. Everyone would have a different opinion about his attitude, right? And so it's not, the only thing we can put into the circumstance line is that what he said. That is completely factual. And the way we always test our circumstances is we ask ourselves, would this hold up in a court of law? In the court of law, if everyone was looking at the facts, at the evidence, would we say he had attitude? Well, no, we can't really prove that. That's it's not math. We can't measure it. The only thing that we can measure is these words were said, right? So then we can, if we want to show up as a mom so first of all, right, there's so many ways that we could choose to show up as a mom in this situation. We could show up as loving. I mean, love is always the best thing because it feels the best to us. Okay. Our boy cannot feel our love until he thinks, oh, my mom loves me, because his feeling of loved is produced by his own thoughts. Okay. So we're only going to think about how we want to feel for us. So we can feel love, we can feel compassion, we can feel understanding. Sometimes when it's hard for us to get to love and compassion and all these wonderful things, if we're angry, sometimes it's helpful for us to go in the middle and be curious or confused. Like, oh, I wonder why he said that, right? Right? And notice how from anger, like he's a jerk, when we say, oh, I wonder why he said that, we feel a lot more open. We feel a lot more at ease. We're like not as angry. And we're kind of like leaning towards him. We are wanting to connect. We're wanting to understand. We can also be confused. We're like, oh, I don't know why he said that. Like, this makes no sense. And right. And then you can be like, why did he say that? So that is a very useful bridge thought that we say. If you can't get to love and understanding, then just be curious or confused. Like, this doesn't make sense. He's a good boy. Why do you say that, right? So whatever feeling you want to choose to feel in the situation, you can plug it into this model, to this framework that I told you about. And you can say to yourself, okay, how do I want to feel? And the one that I wrote down here for myself is, I will want to feel love. And so and then I ask myself, if I want to feel love, when he says, why don't you do that? What do I have to think to feel love about my boy? And for me, I wrote down, he's a good boy. Because to me, when I say that, it works, it clicks, and it's kind of like a reminder, oh, right, he is deep down, always at the core, he's always a good boy, always. And so I just have to remember that. So for me, that sentence works. For you, it might be another combination of words that creates love for you. So let's say you think, okay, I want to feel love. And when he says, why don't you do that? You can think, he's a good boy. Then you feel love. And then how do you show up to your son when he says, why don't you do that? If you're feeling love. So the way I would show up if I'm feeling love and he says, why don't you do that, is I'll be more supportive. I'll be curious. I respond with love. I can be understanding, compassionate, loving. I'm not going to be a jerk, right? Like, it doesn't even matter what I do at that point. Like, I could even make him lunch if I'm feeling love. I could be like, I love you so much. Here's lunch. Or I could say no. Like, hon, I want you to be self-sufficient. This is a great opportunity for you to practice that. Here's why it's important. And I would be coming from love. Like, see, I'm still teaching him. I'm still honoring what's important to me as a parent. I'm still conveying what it is that I would want for him, right? I'm even telling him, this will be good for you. I want you to be self-sufficient. You need to fuel your body with good food. What you do now matters, blah, blah, blah. But I'm not being needy and dependent on what he does. Okay, this is work, okay? This is not effortless. This takes practice. And you can be loving and still be upset that he didn't do it, or you can be loving and accept that he has a free will and he doesn't want to do it, right? Then that's totally another option for you. But no matter what he does, you showed up as a loving mom. You showed up as a good mom, all because you had a thought, he's a good boy. All because you had that thought, you were in control of how you feel and how you are as a mom to him in that moment. So powerful, because we can't control what they do. Damn it, right? We cannot control what they do. And as they grow, we lose more and more of that illusion of control, right? Because when they're little, we have an illusion that we can't control them because we can, they're dependent on us. And there's so many other things, right, that are going on. And we can tell them what to do. And we're bigger, we're stronger, and they just believe us and they just do what we ask. And we even yell, right? When we yell, they do what we want. So we feel in control. We feel like we did control them. It's just an illusion. We never, ever control them. In fact, we yell when we feel out of control, but the only time that they always do something, it's because of their free will. They're exercising their decision-making skills. They have a thought, oh my God, mom is mad, I must do it. Because they have that thought, they feel compelled to do it, they do it. But we think that we were so powerful. No, never, ever true. So no matter what is going on in your life, no matter what other people say or do, your boss, your colleagues, your husband, your wife, your son, your daughter, your parents, you can't control any of them. You can't. And so the problem will always be coming from your thought about them. And that's why this is a solution to any problem, because any problem is always a thought problem. Whenever we think that we have a problem, we as humans tend to attribute it to somebody else or something else. We're like, oh, well, I don't have time because I have so many things to do, and I have kids and I have a job and blah, blah, blah. So we're like, oh, the problem is that the job and the kids. And no. So and that's not true. So the way what I'm telling you right now is that we take that confusion, because when we think that the job and the kids are robbing us of our time, well, we're going to be pretty helpless, because we can't change that we have the kids and we have to have a job, right? So then we're stuck. So if you've tried that, then you probably are willing to try my way and just try it out, right? What if the job and the kids are an external thing that you have no control over, and it's not good or bad? And then the thought that you think about that is either a useful way to look at it or not useful, right? We try not to call thoughts bad or good, because they're not good or bad. They can be either useful for us and produce good feeling and produce like good action in our life, which will produce a result that we do want in our life. Or some thoughts like, he's a jerk, it's just not useful. It's not useful because then we're feeling angry, we're showing up as a jerk, and then we are not in control of ourselves, right? We're not showing up as a good mom that we want to be. So any problem is a thought problem. So if a problem is a thought, then the solution would be a thought, right? And what one thought works for some people might not work for other people. And the work that we do here in coaching is the thought work. We address the root of the problem, which is a thought, okay? And as coaches, we don't know what's best for you. We don't know what action you should be taking. We don't know what result you want. We have no idea. We are not the experts in your life at all. All we do is we are the experts in how to see the root of the problem. How are you feeling when you're thinking this? Oh, well, you're feeling angry because you're thinking this, not because he said that. And the reason why you're showing up as a snapping, nagging mom is because of this thought, not because of what he said. So once we do that, and this is what we do with our clients, is I show the client that this, when they think this thought, then they feel angry and they show up as a jerk, isn't all in their control. And we do this with zero judgment, like we're being curious, because judgment doesn't lead to change. You know, if the client is beating themselves up for this thought, then it's going to be very hard for them to choose a different thought. So when we are in this coaching bubble, we hold the space, what we call it. We hold the space for all of the humanness. We hold space for any thought that comes up. Zero judgment. Thought is just a thought. Again, a thought is something that is not good or bad. It's something that our brain comes up with, and it's either producing something good in our life or something bad. So, and then once we show that to our client, we give them all their power back. We say, hey, even though you can control what he says, you can still control how you feel about him, and you can still control how you show up to him as a mom. And that is life-changing completely, right? Because then all we have to do is mind our own business. And our business is what we're thinking, how we're feeling, how we're acting. And then the results will be the effect of all those actions in our life. So if you are ever wanting to apply this in your life, you can just take this podcast and I can put in the show notes the model, the framework that we use, and all you have to do is plug in the things into the model, each category, right? But when you're stuck, please bring it to me, because it takes a while to make the model work for you. Because we have to make sure we're using it properly. We have to make sure that the circumstance is actually the circumstance and not your thought. And so there's just a little nuances that we have to kind of adjust. Like it's kind of like a little math problem, right? Like x plus y equals z. We have to make sure that the x that you have is actually the x and the y that you have is actually the y, and then basically like tune in the model to work for you. And so I would love to do that for you. And if you want to experience this model working in your life for you, I would be honored to coach you anytime. All you just have to do is go to my website or my Instagram and just message me or email me, Natalia@coachingnatalia.com, or that's my email, or go to my website is www.coachingnatalia.com. And I will just love to show you this. And the best thing, my favorite part about this is that you don't need anyone else to apply this in your life once you kind of have it tuned in. Because you can solve any problem with this anytime. Anytime you have it, you have anything that's bugging you, anytime you feel stuck, anytime you feel super angry at someone for something that they did, anything, this is like the key to any problem. One of my clients said that. She said, you gave me the key to any problem and to open to any window to anything. This is it. So I am thrilled to give this to you now so that you can have it. And I'm going to be on a mission to kind of bring this variation of this model to you every week so that you can see the effects of it in your life. And I'm so grateful to Brooke Castillo for sharing this with everyone. And yeah, so there you have it. This is a solution to any problem, because any problem is a thought problem. So it's never, ever, ever them. Ever, 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 ever. So, yeah. So I hope to see you soon, guys. I would love to meet you and hear about your life, hear about what's bugging you and help you. So I'll talk to you soon. Bye.